So let's not beat around the bush, because this one's a complex one. So teenager Trene Colecozy-Rogers was just 17 years old when he stabbed his friend in the heart, killing him during a memorial party in Liverpool. Again, this is a 17-year-old teenager, essentially murdering his friend by stabbing him in the heart over an argument that erupted from a possible mistake, or at the very least, the initial situation was severely exaggerated. These two people knew each other. In fact, the victim, 25-year-old Dre Estridge, and Trene were considered friends, so much so that Dre actually lived with Trene and his mum for a while when he had nowhere else to go. All that was pushed aside, though, due to drinks and drugs and egos. In the end, a 17-year-old teenager murdered a 25-year-old man. So, when murder is committed, there's undoubtedly a defence. And when we can't question the dead or get their side of the story, then we have to contextualise everything. And of course, understand that a murderer is going to paint themselves as a victim. Therefore, nothing an offender says is going to be 100% accurate. So, you have to take their account with a pinch of salt. According to Trene, he stabbed his friend after he saw his distraught mother rush out of a bedroom with messy hair and half-clothed. Then, the accused murderer went on to say that when he went into the bedroom, he saw Dre, sparking questions. Logically, he went to confront him and saw Dre pulling up his shorts as he got off the bed, which led to the assumption that something sexual had taken place. An argument then ensued, and that led to Trene stabbing Dre in the heart. When the trial began, Trene elaborated on the situation. He told the jury that Dre was the aggressor and reached for the knife first, but in a stroke of good fortune or luck, or divine intervention, he managed to grab the knife before Dre. In that moment of madness, Dre then lunged at Trene, and in that moment, again, he stabbed the victim. Trene went on to say that it was an accident. The judge wholeheartedly rejected the claim that suggested Dre sexually assaulted Trene's mom. This was due to witness statements that found Trene's mom had a drinking problem, and at the memorial party she was drunk, belligerent, and made an absolute fool of herself. It's sad to say that about someone's mother, but from all accounts, it's a claim that you can't exactly refute. A statement from the person who hosted the memorial in memory of her son who died at 2 years old, Miss Garrett, explained that Dre was manning the barbecue and everything was going well at first. Now, it has to be said that Miss Garrett and Trene's mum had been close friends for years, so there wouldn't be an expectation to lie or fabricate the truth. She explained how Miss Colecozy made a fool of herself by drinking herself silly, was abusive to guests while she was drunk, and even got into scuffles at certain points of the evening. After all that, she attempted to invite 19-year-old Nathan Kane to dance, who she had no idea who he was, as they had never met before. When Nathan Kane declined the offer, she went mad. She clawed at his face and neck and threw punches like a madwoman off her trolley. Once she was depleted of energy, being lightheaded combined with being absolutely bladdered, she began to stumble and essentially dropped, injuring herself, but mainly her forehead. The injury was bad enough to draw blood. Numerous people said Miss Colecozy was out of control. It was then that it was decided that she needed help to get home and sleep off the booze that she had drunk. That's when Trene was called to collect his drunk mother. It hasn't been said at what time Trene was called, but what is known is that Trene arrived with his friend via taxi at 5:57 a.m, but the driver refused to take Miss Colecozy in a taxi as she was still belligerent and drunk and covered in blood. So after all that, it was then again decided that Miss Colecozy needed to go back into the house and sleep off the drunkenness. Now this is where things get murky. According to Trene's sister, she took her mum into the shower to clean up. Bear in mind now, this girl is only 7 years old, and that is a hard task for anybody to do. Think about it, to strip someone down to their underwear, haul their heavy body into the shower, clean the person up, and then get them redressed again, that's a hell of a lot of work to do, but that's neither here nor there. Once Miss Colecozy was cleaned up, Trene says that he heard his mum scream something with enough emotion that it seemed like something was happening to her. He then ran upstairs to find his mum coming out of the bedroom, half naked and upset. Now, as a son, I could understand Trene putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 9. In his mind, his mum was half-dressed or showing too much cleavage. Instantly, he must have thought to himself, someone has tried to undress her. But you have to bear in mind again, His sister tried to get their mum in the shower. What's to say the 7-year-old girl couldn't dress her mum properly due to her mum being uncooperative? Or what's to say their mum messed up her own clothes? These are hypotheses, of course. Trene went on to say that when he saw his mum and asked her what had happened, she was too distraught to speak. Every time she tried to speak, nothing would come out. But again, the woman was a drunken mess. Maybe that was due to the copious amounts of alcohol in her system. Maybe it's because she couldn't speak because she was too belligerent, or she was trying to hold her vomit down. Again, speculation. So Trene told his mum to go downstairs while he confronted Dre. Trene claimed he saw Dre pull up his shorts, but again, this was not proven. And when he confronted Dre by asking what's going on, why is my mum upset, Trene says that Dre replied with, "What do you think is going on?" Trene then replied with, "What do you mean? You're meant to be my brother's mate." To which Dre responded with, "My mum's a slag. All our mums are slags. I'm not asked about you or your brother." Trene went on to tell the jury it looked like Dre had sex with Trene's mum without her consent, suggesting that rape took place. The only issue with that is there was no evidence, no police reports, no rape kit performed, nothing to suggest sexual activity had taken place. It was also a claim the judge dismissed. Again, these two were friends. So being classed as friends, why would a friend try to have intercourse with another friend's mum? That just baffles me. Secondly, why would Dre call his own mum a slag when he was asked about Trene's mum? It's not a narrative that seems plausible. I know if I'm friends with someone, there would never be a possibility I'd make a move on a friend's mum or vice versa. And then, when confronted, Dre turns around and says, "What do you think happened?" It's not very likely, unless he's a narcissist who suffers from a godlike complex and thought nothing could happen to him or he couldn't get touched. Trene continued to paint Dre as the aggressor, going on to say that Dre threw a punch at him but missed, and he returned a punch in self-defense, which grazed Dre. Dre then went for the kitchen knife, like I said previously, but Trene got the handle first, in which he was forced to stab Dre in order to preserve his own life. Consider it a do-or-die situation. According to Trene, it was an accident. In court, Trene was asked, "Did you deliberately put the knife into Dre's body?" Trene replied with a no. Dre was slumped on the floor, virtually unresponsive, it was reported. Credit to his friends because they attempted CPR until the ambulance arrived and until the paramedics could continue. Unfortunately, Dre died at the scene due to massive internal bleeding. A pathologist says Dre suffered a 13cm deep chest wound, plus defensive wounds to his wrist and a scrape on his left ring finger, which leads to the suggestion that those injuries were defensive wounds, not consistent with Trene's story of Dre being an aggressor, or the fact that the murder was a costly mistake. And imagine this. Friends phoned Trene to ask what happened, all the while they were fighting to save Dre's life. Trene played dumb, being quoted as saying nothing when asked what happened. Also when asked if he stabbed Dre, his reply was, "What are you talking about?" before he hung up and switched off his mobile phones, which he had 2 phones. In order to hammer the defence home the message of the murderer being considered an accident, Trene told the jury that he felt bad, but not for the fact that he left a friend bleeding on the floor and leaving him to die while he changed his clothes, cleaned off the murder weapon before hiding it under a pavement slab and running away. But for the fact that he kinda, almost, just a bit, had to take some responsibility for the murder. Again, there's a confliction to what Trene says to the jury and what he actually did. Number 1, Trene says he paid a guy £150 to get him to Liverpool, but a call from his brother to tell him Trene died made him come back because he felt bad. However, this guy didn't turn himself in until months later, and when he went to the police station, he remained silent during the interview. To be honest, Trene was doing damage control. It's easy to spin a narrative in your own defence when the other person cannot speak. And let's not even speak on the fact that Trene is claiming he accidentally stabbed the person, yet he left a 13cm deep wound that tore through his heart. Think about the amount of force it would take to rip through someone's heart. Now, I'm not trying to say that Dre was a saint. Both people have criminal records, but that changes nothing. On the most basic humanistic level, you need to respect life. Take a moment to think about a situation before you act, and if you do something wrong, then own up to your mistakes. Trene was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Dre. When the verdict was read out, it is said that Trene just sat there staring straight ahead. Maybe he just resigned himself to the fact that he was going to prison, that he was going to get a jail sentence. Condolences to Dre's family, which it was says they cried when the guilty verdict was read out. Safe.